Okay. So, like, semi-breaking news, because I'm like a day late to the party probably by the time this video goes live. Crunchyroll has announced that it has purchased Right Stuf, which, if you have been paying attention to anime companies that are somewhat prominent over the last, I don't know, several decades, this might seem a little scary, because, you know, it is. So for those who don't know, Crunchyroll is big now media conglomerate owned by Sony, recently joined in a weird flesh meld thing with Funimation, and the Crunchyroll branding won out, so now they're the face of the whole operation, but it's basically the two same companies. They're gallivanting around now, and they are literally eating everyone else's lunch. Right Stuf is a distributor of physical anime media that has been around for a very long time. I think they were founded in the late 80s, 90s, something around there. They've been around for a while, and Right Stuf has been at least well known to me and the people that I follow as a very, very good place to purchase anime. If you've been in Canada like I am, they're really the best when it comes to purchasing in bulk, because all of their prices are really low. It's usually, for me, shipping that's been the killer. And they've been extremely great just because of their quality of service. If you purchase things on Amazon, like, you sometimes get this weird envelope and you can never guarantee that whatever you actually get is going to be in fairly pristine condition. I have never received a package from Right Stuf that did not have literal pristine copies of everything that I ordered. Right Stuf has been historically my favorite place to order from, and the only reason I haven't done it more often is because, again, for monetary reasons, I need to buy in bulk, and also sometimes if I wanted to purchase something for a video, I need it timely, which is not something else that I can get from ordering from them in the States, unfortunately. But it's always been my go-to if I could manage it. Now, Crunchyroll buying Right Stuf is not something that I expected. In fact, I kind of freaked out because it was like, why would they do this? I've been of the mind, and I think a lot of other people have been kind of thinking along these lines too, that physical anime media is slowly dying and it's on its way out. Mostly because you have these giant conglomerates like Crunchyroll that are eating everything and they're streaming all of it, because that is their bread and butter. They would rather stream the anime than put it on a disc or in any other format and give it to someone so that they don't have to use their streaming service anymore. Why would you do that? It just doesn't make sense for them. So for them to actually put in, like, money down to purchase an anime distributor, you gotta question why they're doing it. And I think a lot of people are seriously worried about the whole monopoly aspect of this situation, because it really does seem to be like Sony and Crunchyroll and whatever remains of Funimation exists. That whole blob of mass is just trying to get everything, or at least most things, which makes it very hard if they decide that any of the content that they have, they don't want to offer to people anymore, especially if they don't want to offer it in other regions, which means that's a perfect segue very briefly to talk about today's sponsor. Today's sponsor, of course, being the good people at Surfshark VPN. A VPN, for those who don't know, is a great way to help protect your privacy and what you view online as you surf and watch anime and videos on the web, because not only does it secure your data, encrypting it to help stop people from eavesdropping on your connection, but it also allows you to mask your location. This is the important part for today's talk, because doing so allows you to bypass the region locking of a variety of streaming services, as not all streaming services are equal in what regions they service. So having a VPN like Surfshark can help you access shows you might not be able to otherwise because the particular streaming companies don't like your country. Content blocked on services such as Netflix and YouTube, for example, can be accessible simply by connecting to a local server from the country you'd like to access, and then you are free to do as you like. And of course, Surfshark is available on a variety of devices as well as your PC, so you can stream your anime on the go if you so choose. There will be a link and a promo code in the description where you can sign up for a percentage off as well as an extra 3 months free, because we just love you guys oh so much. And best of all, if you try it out, you find that it doesn't help, it's not doing what you expected, it doesn't end up unblocking the content that you personally want it to unblock, and Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked. So thank you very much to Surfshark for sponsoring the video. You're probably going to be extremely useful in the coming months, unless, you know, the content that we want to watch is just not available anywhere. And I really hope that that's not the case. So one of the reasons why I'm like a day late on this today is It's the Friday. It's the 5th as I am sitting here recording it. It is Friday morning. Most of this information came out Thursday afternoon, and some people were able to jump on it yesterday, but I wanted to take at least a little bit of time, get my hair cut, but also, more importantly, to try and sit and not just go off of a base reaction of negativity, because I wanted to sit and I wanted to think, and I wanted to try and come up with a way to view this positively, which I know is difficult and I know is in some cases impossible, because everything that has happened in the anime industry as far as companies doing weird things like this, I've always been able to find at least some semblance of positivity for us consumers. Now, the positivity might be inconsequential compared to maybe the wider or larger picture, but I still wanted to find something, because on my first reaction, I couldn't think of anything. Unless you were a Crunchyroll or a Right Stuf shareholder or something who probably got a lot of money or a lot of value out of this deal, I didn't see it, especially for a consumer. From a consumer perspective, I could not understand any positive spin that this has. Crunchyroll and all of their existing subsidiaries prior to this have had not the best track records when it's come to physical distribution of things. And while you might like to think that them buying Right Stuf means that any physical media that they produce and they distribute from here point on would go to the same standards that Right Stuf has held themselves to over the decades, corporatization has usually been a negative in that regard, especially when we were previously talking about the Crunchyroll Funimation merger. I was definitely worried that any of the good parts that Funimation had would just be sanded away. We haven't fully seen whether or not that has been the case. It's sort of been leaning that way in some respects, but we're not going to get into that. The thing that I am most worried about is if this is not a acquisition so that the good parts of Right Stuf can be folded under the Crunchyroll brand. I'm more so worried that this is more of just a stomping out of a competition thing and trying to essentially kill physical distribution of anime, which, when I really think about it, I feel like that might not be the case, because that would be almost going too far. Crunchyroll, in their current existence, controls a very large amount of anime licenses that come to North America right now, just by virtue of being the largest and the one with the biggest stick. And it would be very easy to kill off physical media just simply by not offering it, by making deals with the Japanese licensors so that either they own the physical rights to things and not doing anything with it, or making deals to potentially incentivize the lack of selling that to other people. There are ways that they could be doing that. So purchasing Right Stuf from that perspective just seems a little odd, because I feel like they could choke them out without actually having to buy them out. But maybe they think, or maybe some analyst somewhere was like, no, it would be a lot cheaper and easier to just buy them out and shut them down. I hope that's not going to be the case. And so it's very easy to get into a doom and gloom mindset. Even with the Funimation and Crunchyroll merger, I was able to come up with a potential consumer positive, because I know a lot of us talk about monopolies and we don't like everything being under one banner, because Crunchyroll could just decide, hey, we're not going to relicense a thing and now nobody can watch it at all, and it just disappears from their streaming service and it's gone, right? That is a thing that is very, very possible. But also, really, when you think about it, the competition between Crunchyroll and Funimation wasn't really a competition. They weren't trying to one-up each other as far as the service they provided. Like, if you actually used both of their streaming services at the same time, I think you can probably agree that they're both equally shit in a lot of ways. There are certain things that haven't been good with their streaming, and just like the back end, the thing that has been competition between them before the merger was not how good their actual streaming service was. It was who happened to have the most Shonen Jump licenses. That's really it. The license was key in everything. They did not care how good their streaming services were. They weren't trying to make a better actual physical streaming service than, say, Netflix or what have you. They didn't need to. All they needed to do was get the most popular licenses, probably from Jump, and just offer that to us, the consumers, and they've won. That was the competition between them. So from a consumer perspective, you could say that that was a negative thing, because if any of the popular series from any particular season was split between the two companies, you as a consumer had to pay monthly for both of these services in order to watch everything. Now, you as a consumer don't. You only have to buy one and just get Crunchyroll. And that's like one of the major good things that you could look at that merger and say happened for us as consumers. Now, there are a lot of negatives to that, as I've already mentioned. Crunchyroll can just decide either to not license a thing and nobody else has the actual physical capital in order to pick it up, or they could have something for a number of years and then it just disappears. They could have a massive backlog of stuff from the 90s, the early 2000s, or whenever, and just not offer that anymore. They can do that. And without another company to come in and pick up those licenses and be able to work with it, it's just going to disappear. I've been paying attention to Sentai and High Dive for the last little bit, and I've noticed their lack of licenses over the last couple of months. Discotek is an anime distributor that's been doing very well, but they have a particular niche of older anime. And while that is good, and I really hope that they're able to continue with that, if we're talking about like market share, what Discotek covers, Crunchyroll, generally speaking, has no interest in. Crunchyroll wants the latest and greatest. Discotek wants the I don't know if there's like a latest and greatest for like the old classics, but that's what Discotek, generally speaking, has focused on. But in the Right Stuf deal, here's the other thing, now that I think about it. This isn't just buying Right Stuf, the anime store where you can buy physical media of anime. This is also buying all of their subsidiaries and adjacent companies. So this is Nozomi, which is another anime licensor who has done things very similar to Discotek, not necessarily in like older classics. That's not what Nozomi has picked up. Nozomi has picked up, I don't know how best to describe their shows. It's things that I like. Some of my favorite shows have been Nozomi properties, but also Nozomi's biggest thing that they have available to them right now is Gundam. Nozomi has been releasing over the last number of years literally pretty much all of Gundam. They've had the exclusive rights to Gundam for a good while. If you've bought a physical version of Gundam in like the last, I think 10 years now, it's hard to remember years, but if you've gotten a physical release of Gundam in the last little while, it's been from them. And now Crunchyroll has that. Are they going to do anything interesting with it? Or if someone tells me that they bought Right Stuf just so that they could own Gundam, I wouldn't be surprised, and I would also be very saddened if that was the case. I really hope that's not the case. I really hope that they didn't buy Right Stuf just to have Gundam, my god. But now, Crunchyroll owns Nozomi, so we don't know what's going to happen with that. We don't know if that brand is just going to go the way of the ghost. Maybe they might end up being a separate offshoot for things that Crunchyroll doesn't want to have in general. I don't know. We'll see what the bigwigs want to do with branding and whether or not they get rid of it. But this also means that Crunchyroll has purchased the branding of Critical Mass. Now, Critical Mass is the adult label. This is the smut, to put it lightly. I can use that word, right? I'm not going to get demonetized for that word, right? YouTube. So that has been an 18+ label, and while I personally have not partaken in that particular genre of anime, I very much want it to be available to those who do. And what has been offered by them has been kind of one of the bigger things, at least as far as historically. Like, I know places like Faku and that do exist and do offer great products and that sort of thing, but removing a complete aspect of the 18+ genre and removing that availability is kind of a big blow. Now, there has been a new website that has popped up, and I'll show it here on the screen, and they seem to be the official offshoot of everything that Right Stuf previously had in those adult genres. Now, I don't know what this actually means. This could be two separate things. This could be a completely separate company run by completely separate people who are just capitalizing on the fact that Right Stuf doesn't have this type of anime anymore. And they're like, hey, we'll take over and we'll do that. Or this could literally be people that used to be part of Critical Mass who are just rebranding because Crunchyroll wants nothing to do with this sort of thing and they don't want any relationship to it. And so they're just rebranding under a different name, very quietly, very hush-hush, and they're trying to be as separate from the original deal as possible. Don't know what that is going to be like. Probably we'll never find out, because the whole purpose of that, if it's to be true, is that they want to be as separate from Right Stuf and the deal as possible so as to not ruffle any feathers of people that don't like things. What is really annoying about this, actually, do you remember a series called Interspecies Reviewers? It was a somewhat adjacent, not actual 18 plus, but pretty close to anime series that released last year, and Funimation licensed it without really knowing what they were getting themselves into, and then they dropped it after like 2 episodes or so, and it made this big hubbub because not only were there fans of the series, but generally speaking, why license a thing only to then cut it out only after 2 episodes? It's really bad form. Well, after Funimation dropped it, it was picked up again and released on physical media by Critical Mass, who now don't exist, and you can't get that physical release anymore. I checked. It is out of print, it is out of stock, and if we're lucky, it'll come back, but my God, doesn't it feel like there is someone who works at the now Crunchyroll, formerly Funimation offices, who are just like, that series, ooh, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna make sure that if we can't have you, no one can. It really does feel like someone has it out for interspecies reviewers, and I feel pretty sad for it as a property. So hopefully good things will come of that eventually. But in general, I don't see a positive. What's the positive of this? There is no guarantee that Right Stuf is going to be able to contain the premium quality that they've had, the great quality that they've had as a store. Essentially, there's no guarantee of that. I'm worried about all of the licenses that Nozomi had, everything from Gundam, of course, but also to other things like Aria and Emma and Sound of the Sky, which I think they still have, and my God, is one of my favorite physical releases that I own. Like, what's gonna happen to these things? What's gonna happen to these shows? Is Crunchyroll just gonna yoink them and be like, yeah, hey, no, nothing's gonna happen now? Or maybe, best case scenario, Crunchyroll's like, hey, we're just going to produce the things and send it off, and Nozomi will become now maybe the publishing arm because they've gotten really good at making special editions of things. Have you ever bought a special edition of something from Nozomi? I got one. This is the 10th anniversary edition of Gundam 00, and this is an amazing box set. I love this thing. It sits on the top of my shelf behind me. It is an amazing box set, and I have not had a problem with anything that they have ever released. Okay, technically this is not Nozomi, because their label isn't on it, but Right Stuf's label is on it. This is the same thing. Same people, same company, same mindset as far as quality. And I'm worried that that's gonna go away. I really hope that that's not going to happen, because I love not only having physical media, but also getting those special editions of shows that I absolutely love. And it sucks that a lot of my favorite anime over the last like half decade at least have been Crunchyroll properties that they've not done anything with. It is nice that like now we're seeing a Unicamp dub coming out, and potentially I'd like to hope that that means we're going to get a physical release of that. Will it happen? Probably not, at least not from Crunchyroll. I very much doubt that it'll be from Crunchyroll. I hope that it'll be from someone, but we'll have to see. And it just really sucks, because when you're in this position, like Crunchyroll is, to just throw money around, it's very hard for another company to pop in. Other companies are going to say that they're going to come in, and there have been many companies over the years that would be like, oh, we're going to kill Funimation, or we're going to kill Crunchyroll. And at the end of the day, they're not. For a number of reasons, mostly because I think in order to get really, really good and to actually get into the market, you need to run in the red, which a lot of companies can't do for a long period of time. And so if you're going to have a new company to compete, like, the best way to compete in the anime market is to get the licenses that people want to watch. And chances are, if it's a big, super popular license, Crunchyroll not only negotiated for it 2 years ago, they're on the production committee at this point, right? So the chances of a new company being able to come in, you need to essentially know people. The best chance we have at this point is for a lot of existing Crunchyroll people to get fed up with Crunchyroll, spin off and make their own company. And that's the best case scenario, and I don't see that happening anytime soon. So as far as like anime distribution, I want to be hopeful that this means that like Crunchyroll will actually make more physical releases. That's the best case that I can see, is if they do make more physical releases and they have Right Stuf deal with it, or what is going to be left of Right Stuf. We don't know if they're keeping their branding. We don't know if they're we don't know what they're keeping. Honestly, we have no idea right now. It's too new. Like, I'm hoping for best case scenario, but I'm preparing for worst case, because historically that's what we've seen. Not to leave this video on a downer, but that's kind of how I'm feeling at the moment. When Crunchyroll bought Funimation, one could say that nothing of value was lost. from a consumer perspective, you could potentially find the good side of that buyout, even though, yes, monopolies, not good, definitely not good, but there was at least one bright thing that you could look at. Here, I'm not seeing it. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I didn't expect to be talking about this, but you know, this is how things happen. Hopefully you've gained some semblance of insight, at least from my perspective, and how I've been following along with how the industry has moved in the last number of months. My God. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. Thank you to our sponsor, Surfshark VPN, who is probably going to be very useful in the future, depending on how Crunchyroll changes things. And lastly, thank you to my patrons who make it possible for me to do this sort of thing and to allow me to make the videos that I want to do in the way that I want to do them. Your names have been scrolling here beside my head, and I cannot thank any of you enough. And of course, an even bigger thank you to those patrons that help just that little bit more, specifically Olmar Showman, Hector Montemayor, Wago221, City Yamako, Bryphon Bonaparte, and Ross Emerson for being especially awesome. I thank you. And until next time, watch more anime and stay frosty.